Well, hello. If you're anything like me, your workshop must be full of wooden scraps. And it's time to build a scrap rack, isn't it? Stay with me and we'll build one together.
I don't know why I waited so long before building a scrap rack, but I'm kind of glad I did, because what I find out after all this time, and now that my workshop is completely flooded with scraps, is the kind of scraps that I produce. You see, there's hundreds of videos showing how to build one, but each one of them responds to a certain requirement, and my requirement is slightly different from most of them. Let me explain while I'm building the bottom frame. A lot of the scrap rack I've seen are composed of two inclined planes onto which lie the flat material, and a space in between which is used to store long sticks. The problem is I don't have a lot of long sticks. In fact, I don't have any. So what I'm gonna do is slightly different. I will have one inclined plane and a lot of storage on the other side, which will allow me to store different kinds of bits of different lengths and different widths. I do have a pair of sawhorses though, and I don't know where to put them, so I will need a bit of long storage, but it will be just this little box on the bottom. I suppose that's the beauty of these kind of projects anyway. You build them down to your own specific requirements rather than following a blueprint made by someone else. Anyway, back to the build now. I'm using generic construction timber coming from a box store, and so you can see it's all very twisty and bendy, but because it's softwood it can be forced in position, so I'm not too worried about the final shape, and also the weight of it will keep it flat one way or another. I'm also not gluing or joining these pieces together other than with some screws, because I may want to take it apart and remake it in the future in case my necessity change. All I have to do is add a few blocks in the corners so I can gain some width, enough for the castors to be screwed on. Needless to say, these are very heavy-duty castors because apart from the bottom frame, anything else is going to be made out of OSB, which is kind of heavy as a material, and on top of that, all the scraps in it are going to add a lot of weight, so this thing is going to be very, very, very heavy. Before we go too far, let me apologize for the out-of-focus frames. There will be a few during the video, not too many, but I had some problem with the camera on close-ups, and so unfortunately that's all the footage I have. Anyway, I'm just screwing the casters here, so you're not really missing much if you can't see sharply, I suppose. If you're new to woodworking, you may not be aware of this, but most sheet material doesn't actually come square from factory, for a reason I don't fully understand, but that's the nature of things, and it can really mess your entire project if you relied on that corner. This time though, I was very lucky because it was actually square, so I was ready to cut the components for the base and the rest of the build. Having a small workshop can be very challenging, especially when it comes to cut large sheet of material, so I'm very happy to have this door behind me because it works as an extension whenever I need to cut a whole sheet on the table saw. It's not a great thing to do in winter, but at this time of the year it's okay, and actually it's quite pleasant to have a bit of fresh air. All you'll see me cutting and assembling from now on is going to be OSB, 18mm for the most and a sheet of 12mm. With the base plate cut, it's time to screw it on the rolling base once it's been nicely centered and clamped in position. Here's some more blurry footage of me using a countersink bit and then driving some screws to fix the base plate onto the bottom frame. And I have now officially created one of the biggest skateboards you ever seen. It's also something that I will try to kill myself with several times along this video, and that's just the first one. And here comes the second one. Enjoy. The next thing to build is the storage for the sawhorses, because that's what all the other components are going to sit on or around, and I'm just using pocket screws to hold together the three pieces it's made of, a top and two sides. In fact, I have to confess that one of the sides is made of 2 bits because I miscalculated the material and I cut it wrong, but I mean, you won't see that once everything is done, so let it be our little secret. It might just be me, but pocket screws really stress the hell out of me because everything tends to move and shift out of place, so I became overly cautious and I tend to add a lot of clumps, even more than I need. In this case actually it's not too bad because I don't need this thing to be perfectly square, the rest of the build will compress it in shape, but I'm still adding a fair amount and hoping for the best. But enough chatting, this is good to go now, and it's time to go on to the next stage.
It's time to work on the vertical spacers. They are a bit complicated in shape, nothing dramatic, but I don't want to print them out because I only have an A4 printer, so I will need loads and loads of sheets just to transfer it. So it's much easier to measure it from the screen and transfer those measurements here. And once I've done the first one, the other ones will be the same, so not much of a deal really. So time to wear my specs and well, get measuring. Well, that's done. Yeah, it didn't take long, probably only 3 minutes, so easy. Now it's time to grab the track, and cut it. While I was thinking about it off camera, I decided at the bottom of my vertical walls, I wanted to add a couple of dominoes. This will help me with location and will also add a little bit of stability. Not a lot, but will definitely help. I couldn't clamp the wall to the top of the box on both sides because of the shape and size of my bench. So I clamped it on this side and I added a temporary screw on this side. And this will keep it in position while I reference the holes. I will also have to dig different size holes for the vertical and for the horizontal. So let's start.
The dominoes are for location only, so I will still use pocket screws to actually fix the spacers to the base. The partitions are ready, the box is ready, the platform is ready and is still trying to kill me, so it's time to start assembling the few little bits I have so far. Bit of clamping of the box on the base, bit of tapping to place it in position, and a few pocket screws, and the job is brilliantly and swiftly done. I didn't bother you with the whole cutting process, but I made 5 partitions, 2 of which will sit on the box and will be slightly shorter, and the remaining 3 are going all the way down to the bottom plate. And this part of the assembly was fairly straightforward and easy thanks to the dominoes not only helping me with the location, but also in keeping them straight and flush while I was fixing them with the pocket screws. All I needed to do now was marking the position of the box on the other side, so I knew where to drill, and that's a fairly easy and straightforward operation as well. Yes, I know, that's an awful lot of pocket screws, but this is my chance to put them on, and I don't want to find out I need more once everything is assembled and full of scraps. Now brace yourself, because the next segment really is something. So my workshop is too small to rest the rack on the floor entirely. I decided that I could do some acrobatics and just clamp it in place somehow without it falling down and without killing me. And that really didn't work out the way I was hoping. No, that didn't hurt at all and didn't get me frustrated at all, trust me. It was extremely obvious that this system didn't work, so I decided to try it again just in the same, but a little bit more dangerous and precarious. And surprisingly enough, I don't know why, but that also didn't work. Enough. It's time to remind to myself that I'm supposed to belong to a superior species and apply some system that would actually work. So I clamped a piece of timber on one side, and while this was supported, I could screw the other side and add all the screws on all the spacers. And it's now time to cut the vertical walls that go in between the spacers.
I don't know what happened there, to be honest. I thought the outfit table had shifted in height or position, and where the piece was getting stuck against it, it wasn't the case. I checked everything. I tried again very carefully off camera, and it went smooth. So I'm not sure what's the problem, but that's the important message. Whenever a piece gets stuck on the table saw, stop the blade and figure it out. Don't try and push over, because this thing can punish you. Second time lucky? We'll see. That went well.
And now please indulge me while I brag about my cleverness. You see, I need to place this partition at a certain distance, so I made a spacer, but I did cut a corner off to allow me to pick it up once the partition has been screwed in place, otherwise it would have been very difficult. And that worked brilliantly for the first one, so much so that I can pick it up very easily and it's free, and I can actually now use it to square up the partition and finish off screwing the rest of the pockets. And that was the end of my moment of glory, because the spacer got stuck in the second hole and I had to add a screw in order to pick it up with a pair of pliers. But you know, you win some, lose some, you just carry on and don't give up. With all that done, now it's time to lay down the inclined sheet. This is only 12mm instead of 18 because it doesn't need a lot of strength, and I just need to decide how to trim it and where to start fixing it on the rest of the structure. Now, this is probably a very easy task for most woodworker, but for some reason it took me a long time to decide where to start, how to screw it and what to cut, and I even found time for some mumbling dance. I did get through eventually, and I did make a mistake that I will show you later. Surely it won't be a sheet of OSB stopping me from reaching eternal glory, isn't it? Once I was happy with the positioning of the sheet, all I had to do was reporting the position of the ribs. I keep changing the name of these components. Anyway, I will call them ribs from now on the other side. So that gives me a reference line I can use to drive the screws and fix it in place. Having done that, all I had to do was trim the excess on the sides and on the top. I'm starting from the sides. Starting from the bottom, I did cut as much as possible by sinking the blade into the material, and then left a little bit at the bottom, which I just had to finish off with a hacksaw. And after a moment of self-complacency, I had to trim the top, and this is when I realized I made a mistake, because I had to clamp it on the diagonal side of the ribs, while had I cut this first, I could have used the excess on the two sides, and it would have been a much safer operation. I did make it though. It's not perfect, I did make it, and I'm even reusing the top trim excess to create a bit of a lip at the bottom so the sheets won't fall off.
And there it is, done and dusted. I've done it. It's fully loaded. There's still a bit of room. Not everything made the cut, but it makes me feel like a grown-up woodworker. You know, it's a bit like when you are a teenager and you've been told for years to clean up your room, and then one day you decide to do it and you put all your soul in it, and then you go to your mom and say, this is how it's done, not how you did it all this time. You know what I mean? I love these kind of projects. They are challenging, but at the same time, you don't need to worry about perfection, about the looks. It's mainly about construction and design. The only addition I did was to add a jumpy cord, bungee cord at the back, so that the panels won't fall off when I move this thing, which is very, very heavy, by the way. It's not the easiest thing to move, but it does move. The storage at the bottom is working great. My sawhorses fit just as intended. And yeah, that's it. Well, thanks for watching and see you next time.
Subscribe.